Hola adventurers! Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I found shocking after returning to the United States after living in Mexico for almost 2 years. Today I'm in the beautiful Merida, Mexico. Centro to be exact. Merida, Mexico. It felt like a good idea to make a video about this because if you ever found yourself in this situation, it might be helpful to know on the reverse side what might be shocking when you actually come back to, for me it was the United States or wherever else you might be going to. Or if you're from Mexico and you're planning on visiting los Estados Unidos, posiblemente this will help you know what to expect in another way. Of course, everybody has their own opinions. Don't get mad at me if I say something that offends you, especially the things towards the end. I'm just some dude who's been in Mexico and sharing his opinion. So something you might find chilling about returning back to the United States after spending some time in Mexico is just how cold it is. And I mean cold. I'm cold. You know, I thought the heat was bad here, but when I came back, it was like I was just shaking and nobody around me was shaking. It was just like I was the only person there who was cold, it felt like. And I noticed that immediately. The minute I got off of the airplane, the minute I stepped foot out of the airport, it was cold. And it was Chicago, to be exact, is where I was. Being away from my homeland for so long, you tend to remember the negative things a little bit better than the positive things. And one of the positive things that I noticed right away was just how friendly everybody was and just how much people said hi to each other. Now, you know, depending on where you go, it might not be exactly like that. I happen to be visiting a town in the Midwest, so they're known for being extra, smiley and wavy. And yeah, I went for a walk when I got back, and every single person that I passed, I waved and said hi to. And that just felt so weird.
People in Merida are friendly too, extremely friendly. I can confidently say that I've never had anyone treat me rudely or intentionally hurt my feelings. As long as you're being a respectful person, people here will go out of their way to help you. If I'm ever stranded anywhere, I hope it's in the Yucatan because I'd feel confident that the community would step in and help me the best that they could. But the thing is, people just don't smile and wave at each other. It's normal to pass someone and not make eye contact or acknowledge them, similar to big cities everywhere. In my experience, if you do happen to make eye contact with someone or walk into a room with someone else, then it's acknowledged with a buenos dias, buenas tardes, or buenas noches. But where I'm from originally, it's nearly everyone who I pass that waves, smiles, and says hi.
Something that you might find humorous about returning to the United States after spending some time in Mexico. The first store that I went to go pick up food, I actually started speaking Spanish to that person. And it's funny because my Espanol is terrible. I mean, I've been learning for about 2 years now, so people who don't know any Espanol will probably think that I know Espanol perfectly, but perfectly fine. But to me, I feel like I can barely speak it. But no, for when I went to go pick up my food, I was like, oh, perfecto, and some of the same things were just falling out of my mouth, and I just had to be confusing people everywhere I go. Or like, for example, when I got in my Uber, just the fact that I was getting picked up in an Uber and it was a Mexican person picking me up, I just automatically snapped into Spanish mode. So if you watched my first video on the BC Ruta, you'll know that this is one of the oldest cathedrals in all of the Americas. But there's actually more to it. Before the city was called Merida, it was an epicenter for the Mayan civilization. And the city actually used to be called Tho. Instead of there being a giant cathedral here, there was a giant Mayan pyramid that has since been deconstructed, and under it there's a massive cenote, or sinkhole, that were sacred to the Maya. But what's really interesting about this cathedral is the fact that when the pyramid was deconstructed, the bricks from that pyramid were actually used to build this cathedral that you see right behind me right now. So that means that there's not just hundreds of years of history here in Merida. Really, this has been a major hub for thousands of years. And as you probably know, food is something that makes Mexico stand out on a global level. And the food has truly been amazing here. And I actually kind of forgot, the entire truth about food back in the United States. The fact of the matter is after visiting some grocery stores, I actually found that I could find some pretty inexpensive, decent produce. But what truly did shock me is the food that's prepared out in the world. It was almost like everything that I ate had a obscene amount of salt, and it was almost like I could taste the chemicals. And I feel like that's something that I didn't really notice before coming here to Mexico. I mean, I knew the food in the United States is known for having food that's preserved over food that is high quality. But no, here in Mexico, no matter where you go, high-end restaurant, street food, it's all gonna be amazing. I found myself having the best meal that I've ever had time and time again here in Mexico. And before I came here, I thought, Mexico, it's known for its food. Mexican food is a great style of food. They put a lot of time into the cuisine. But I've actually found that it's a lot more than that. And what it comes down to the most is, yes, they do put a lot of time in the food. It's very highly prepared, but it's the freshness factor. It's because there's so much less time from that food to be picked or that chicken to be butchered to actually be on your plate and taste amazing. And when you are in Mexico eating that amazing Mexican cuisine, there's a 100% chance that you won't be rushed in your meal. In fact, helpful travel tip, they actually will not ask you for the bill or bring it to your table unless you ask for it. So make sure, if your waiter isn't ignoring you, they're just waiting for you to ask for the bill. That's because going out to eat here it's meant for you to unwind. It's meant for you to relax, enjoy your food, and enjoy the time. And enjoy time with your family, with your friends. I would have never thought this was shocking before, but after coming back to the United States, the fact that as soon as it looked like I was about to be finished with my food, it was like, okay, do you want desserts? Do you want more food? Okay, I'm gonna bring your check. And it never made me feel rushed previously, but I actually felt kind of rushed. So I can imagine if somebody's from Mexico or somewhere else in the world where restauranting is more of a long-term outing event, that's just how it is there. It's a priority for that waiter to get rid of you as fast as possible so they can potentially have somebody else come in. It was interesting because that would even be happening at restaurants I'd go to where there was only 1 or 2 people there. I would still feel rushed out of the restaurant. Something else that I found shocking was when you're at that restaurant, you may look around when you enter that restaurant in the United States and realize that everybody's in their pajamas, so it seems. And that was something that I struggled with when I first came to Mexico. When I'd go out to even Walmart, anybody who's been to Walmart in the United States knows exactly what that's like. For example, it's really normal to go out, Friday night to a semi-nice restaurant in a hoodie and some yoga pants or sweatpants or something. Here in Mexico, if you do that, it's gonna really look like you didn't dress up. You didn't put on clothes to go out, because people here, they really get dressed up. No matter where you're going, people have nice clothes on. So if you're visiting, here in Merida, I recommend, don't dress like you're going to work out. Don't dress like you're going to the beach. Just dress nicely. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's like, so you can see people in my videos. Something that I was swiftly reminded of after returning to the United States after 2 years or so, after living in Mexico, just how much reliance there was in politics there. And that's honestly, I can say, is one of my favorite things about being here, is that I haven't heard the DT word or the JB word the whole time I've been here, unless it's from other gringos. That's truly amazing. I mean, Mexico, they have their own set of politics, they have their own set of issues, but people are focused on living. People are focused on their families. People are focused on having a good time. Something else I noticed right away is just how much less sun that I received. And as you can see, trying to be as covered as I can here, there was less sun in general. I mean, 90% of the time it was clouded. But there's a more surprising reason, and that's because In the United States, no matter where I went, I was in a car. I would jump in the car and I would go to that location, I would get out of the car and I would go into the store. But here in Mexico, I'm pretty much walking everywhere I go. And I mean, I know that's probably because I don't have a car down here. I've sold my car in order to experience the car-free lifestyle here. But it was still shocking to me. It's like I felt that I was never in the sun really, unless I purposefully went outside and went for a walk. Depending on who you are, that might be a good, there goes my camera. And what that boils down to, ladies and gentlemen, is zoning. And in the United States, zoning has made it so, certain businesses have to be in certain areas and certain residences have to be in certain areas. Now, if you suffer from allergies, you really need to hear this. In the United States, because there are no female trees planted, the male trees send off a bunch of pollen in the air. Over time, these trees grow and grow, and they keep spreading pollen, and they keep spreading pollen, and the allergies keep getting worse and worse. Something that's majorly improved in Merida, for me, are allergies. So even though I'm in a tropical savanna, as they call it, even though there's tons of trees around me, tons of flowers, tons of fruit, the allergies are not even close. And if you look at an allergy map, you'll see that the allergies are basically non-existent here. And that's something that truly surprised me. So now let's go check out another parque here in Centro. If anyone's wondering, this is the traditional style of clothing here in the Yucatan. I'm not sure what the women's is called, but the men's are guayaberas. And that's actually one of the best things that you can wear down here in the heat. I don't have one yet. I need to get one. Also, I have to say that Mexicanos are some of the hardest working people I've ever met. And that is 100% the truth. No matter where I am, that's something else that I noticed. I noticed that consistently in the United States, whenever I would go out to a restaurant, they would be short-staffed, just like it was still COVID happening and everything. But here, there's an abundance of staff. I mean, it's really interesting because not only is there an abundance of staff, I've experienced the best service, the best hospitality that I've ever experienced here on a consistent basis. And that was something that I just couldn't find in the United States. I mean, really, whenever I'd go out to eat or, into a store for something, they could be in a good mood. They could be a jolly person. Like I said in the beginning, there's some great people there. There's some really friendly people there. But it's just shocking how many times I would go into a store and people would be not friendly and they would just look really sad and really concerned and do their job very poorly. Here, I feel like there's a lot of pride taken in people's job, no matter what job they're doing. You run into some unenthused people, but never once has somebody done their job poorly or I feel like they've been rude to me. So now let's talk about the big angry elephant in the room. And this is the most shocking thing that you might find after returning to the United States after 2 years of living abroad, specifically for me in Mexico. And that's just the fact that it really felt like everybody was against each other. It really felt like no matter where I was going, someone would have an opinion about how the other person was doing something wrong or how somebody in a particular situation wasn't properly doing things right, and overall the culture of violence. So it was really shocking to me, and I know depending on where you are in the United States or not in the United States, it might be totally different, but for me, where I was, even just going into a gas station, I would overhear a conversation about a shooting that had just happened the night before. And overall just, threatening behavior wherever I would go. I mean, it seemed like there was more people just looking upset. Felt like people were looking over their shoulder a little bit more. Just days after I left the United States, the town that I was in had 2 separate stabbing incidents. There was a totally racially motivated stabbing incident at the Walmart that I had visited multiple times when I was there, and there was another person that completely went on a stabbing rampage. I think there was like 7 random people that they stabbed, including a mailman. What's shocking about that is people's reaction. People's reaction to that were like, oh, violence happens everywhere. Any big city this happens. But Here in Merida, I can't even imagine something like that happening, and because what I've realized is what makes a place is the people. It's not the government, it's not the president, it's not the leaders in the community. All that has a huge impact, but overall it's the culture. It's what the people do and what the people say and their motives on a day-to-day basis. And that's one thing that I get asked time and time again. Being home, my experience in Mexico, is it safe? Is it safe? I hear that again and again. And it's always surprising to me that it's safer here than anywhere I have ever lived, yet the perception of being here is that it's not a safe place. And the people who are saying that are people that are from one of the most dangerous places that I've been. I don't hold them personally accountable, and everybody has their own experiences. It's not, somebody's fault that if they don't know anything other than a violent culture. But if there's anything to take away from that, just know that no, that's not normal. It's not normal to go on a stabbing rampage. But if you want to see more of what this beautiful city has to offer, let's keep the fun going. Check out my BC Ruta video next, where I ride the BC Ruta. There's a designated bike path through Centro that happens every weekend, and that way you can see a little bit more of downtown on two wheels.